YouTube, what's going on? We got a really dope tutorial here for you. I didn't get a chance to record the consultation because we're actually doing this haircut in the middle of a hair show at my Tune 45 booth at MBBS in Atlanta. But I can tell you what he asked for was pretty much he lets his hair kind of just lay forward. He doesn't want it disconnected. He wanted the top connected to the sides, and he wanted to finish this shit off with a lower fade. So we're going to give him a nice strong C cup, give him a blurry low fade, really bring out the texture here on top, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it right now. What's going on, YouTube? Today we are shooting a tutorial live at MBBS in Atlanta. We had a crowd around us, and I was just pretty much trying to educate and cut hair and record a tutorial all at once. So we're starting off by starting to cut the length here on the sides. He likes the style that he currently has. He kind of just lets it lay down, and he keeps kind of like a fringe in the front. So we're just gonna, you know, try to elevate, you know what I'm saying, the current look he has. So he wants to end up with like a lower fade. So we're gonna prepare the sides, do the shear work on top, and then we're going to do a low fade. So at this point, I'm going across and I'm just cutting it squared on top to the desired length. He didn't want to bunch off. He actually likes a lot of what he already has. So I'm just, again, I'm starting to do what's called square layering, and that's going to add texture to the top, you know, just by doing that. And you can see when I shake the hair, you know, that kind of, you know, it brings out the texture. It really does. Okay, so at this point, we're going to start cutting the fringe. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not doing any blunt lines, but I'm also not really texturizing too much. We're just kind of going at the ends at, you know, cutting it at an angle. Okay, so we'll start to blow dry. And all I'm really doing is trying to get it dry. I'm not trying to, you know, give it a finished look. But I am kind of looking at the fringe, seeing how it's laying, so I know whether or not I need to take some length off. So once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and start clearing the sides. I'm using a number 4. If you follow along on the bottom left corner, you'll be able to follow along and see what guides I'm using. And the guy in the back, I don't know if you guys remember him from one of my videos, but I actually recorded a tutorial after him, after this client, after this model, cutting that man's hair in the background with the Crenshaw shirt. Alright, so once we've done number 4 all the way around, we're going to go ahead and start to bald him out. I'm using my skeleton FXs. And we're going to keep that bald line low. If you notice, I'm using his hairline behind his ear. That's part of the bald line. I don't want to go much higher than that because then I'm going to run out of room when I'm creating this fade. I'm going to end up going too high on the sides and into the hair that I already cut on top above the parietal ridge. Alright, so the next step is going to be the blade open. And guys, we're in a hair show, and it was dark in there, so please forgive me for the quality. If you can see, like in this angle, it looks a lot better, but there's gonna be some angles where it's a little dark, where there's some shadows. I wanted to keep this tutorial because I do think there's some value in it. This is not an easy haircut in my eyes. I struggled with it early on in my career, so I really want to share this with y'all. All right, so the next guideline we're creating with the number 1 open. And so we have our bald line, our blade open, and now we have our 1 open. And everything above these guidelines, you already know are number 4 because that's where we started. We cleared the bulk of the hair on the sides with a number 4. Okay, so while I'm here, because especially with like a lower fade, it's really hard to create, you know, to keep the low fade sometimes. So like I like to line them up first so that I can keep control of how dark the hairline ends up being, so that I'm kind of blending with that C cup in mind, because that C cup is important to me. The C cup, keeping it dark, gives the illusion that the fade is lower than it really is, in my opinion. So I always like to put in my guidelines, clear the bulk, and then go ahead and start to do that outline so that I can keep that in mind as I'm creating my overall blend. Okay, so at this point we're using our number 2 open, and we're pretty much kind of like using the back of the blade or the guard, kind of like the heel of it, to try not to create too hard of a line into that number 4. Almost want to blend into the 4 by using this motion. A lot of barbers call it C stroke. I kind of hesitate to call it C stroke because sometimes we exaggerate that movement too much. So I really like to use the heel of or the bevel of the guard, the back of the guard. At this point we are closed with that number 2, and we're found right beneath where we left off, and at this point we're kind of blending down. I'm found that number 2 close up with a number 1.5 guard, going up open to close. Alright, so now we're using the half guard and it's all the way open. And again, we're blending down. To me it's harder to blend up, you know what I'm saying, like when you're doing a lower fade. As a matter of fact, I wish I would have just blended down, like created my bald line and then blended down from the 4 down. Just because, especially with the lighting I have, man, it was so hard to see and control this blend. Now you guys can see, look at the temple area, how it's coming together. I'm kind of treating this now like a taper, because if I start to treat this like a fade, I run the risk of bringing that fade up higher. So I'm really just kind of doing like a taper here in the temple area, but it's coming together, especially since we did that C cup real quick. Look at your boy. You can see him. You can see through the lens right now what I'm seeing. You notice I haven't really done much behind the ear, because behind his ear it's so light. Like the density is low. There isn't, you know, it's fine behind the ear. So I really haven't done much behind the ear, and it already kind of looks blended there in that space. So I'm really focusing over here on the mastoid. The mastoid is the area where the sides start to curve into the back of the head shape. And I'm really focusing here to make sure that that starts to kind of blend in and tie into the work we did in the temple area. And you guys can see it's really starting to come together, especially from this angle. I like my low fades to look balanced. Even when I see some low fades sometimes where it looks really dark in this area compared to the sides. I like it to kind of flow into the back. So I really pay attention from this angle when I'm creating that lower fade. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on this side. So on this side, I start blending up to kind of show the crowd, you know, different ways. It's really the same thing, it's just in different order, right? It's really the same steps, it's just in different order. But some people, they need to see that. you know what I mean, in order to understand it, but it's really the same steps. So we did the blade open to close. Now we're doing the half guard, you know, and that's just kind of like when we blend it down, if we reversed it, this would be the next step after the blade open, where after if you were blending down after the half guard, it would be the blade open, right? So anyways, I'm gonna let you guys follow along on this side, follow along with the color guide, and I'll be quiet for a second. Right, so we now have our number 2 guard open. And again, using the same technique where I'm using the bevel of the guard. If you see how it's turned on the side, it kind of has like a curved bevel. That's where I'm kind of laying it onto the scalp. And you can see the blend is already coming together into the back here. We'll close it up now, as you can see, and work right beneath where we just worked with the 2 open. We're working now with the 2 closed, and you can see the blend is coming together. Let's go. Let's go ahead and line up the C cup, which on the other side I showed you guys I prefer to line it up first before we start the fade process. I will say this, it helps with consistency to use the same steps on both sides, but when you're doing a show, you got a whole bunch of people, you know what I'm saying, watching. Shout out to Jason Patches there in the back doing some work. Here I am starting to blend the beard in, and we went blade open, started closing it until it's blended, and now we're using that 1 guard open and then close to finish off blending into the beard. Now this right here is crucial to me because it allows that really long hair to kind of lay into that blend, into that fade area without destroying the shape. So I'm using some blending shears and I'm just softening it up and allowing it to lay much nicer, I feel like much smoother onto the blend. While still keeping that length, right? We're still keeping the bulk in that area. We're not changing the color or the gradient. It's just giving it a much softer, smoother lay. That blend looks good. That blend looking good. All right, so now we went 1 open, now 1 closed. Again on this side of the beard, blade open. We're starting to close it until it's blended. Okay, and so with the front, his fringe area, it was really bulky, so I'm just kind of thinning it out. Again, cutting directly into the hair to give it a softer you know, finish on the fringe area, so it doesn't look so bulky on his forehead. And we're cutting almost an inch in, probably a little more than an inch into the hair strands to give it a softer finish. Look how much texture his hair is starting to get. And that's really mostly from squared layering and then thinning the hair out a little bit. Alright, so now we're gonna enhance the cut. We're using Tomb 45 no drip and the Get Beam compressor, and I'm using a card like this because I couldn't find my template. It was missing, so but just a light mist, you know, a little goes a long way. It allows it to not be too dark and look a little more natural. And we're gonna create this nice sharp line on him, and I think it's gonna bring this haircut to the next level. I'm loving the way this blend came out, and now the C cup is, to me, is just making it pop. Okay, so now we're gonna put some texturizing powder from Tomb 45. You can get it at tomb45.com to finish off the cut. But look how it's looking, guys. I think this cut came out dope. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Here's the before, guys. Look at the after. Different lighting, different angles. Again, it's dark, you know what I'm saying? We're at a hair show, but I love the way the cut came out.
Alright guys, what y'all think about the cut? Good? Awesome. $100 cut. Thank you, bro.
That was dope, man. He said $100 cut all day. Love you guys. See you in the next video.